Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, what do we have this week?
Oh, not a whole lot this week. Just coming off the kind of Christmas break going on in the league. So, kind of got a 4-day stretch there where nothing is happening at all. Games are just recently kind of getting back and underway. So, probably a little bit of a shorter one here for us. But I think we got some fun stuff to kind of help soften the blow of there not being much news to talk about.
Yeah, we still got a few things. We got a couple league achievements. We got a few things to talk about. So, where do we want to start?
Uh, Well, we can start with the outside NHL news. Um, just trying to find where it was here. What was the team again? Uh, I don't see the
Uh
name.
I saw that it was the torpedo.
Oh, yes. I just found it. Yeah. So the Torpedo, one of the teams over in the KHL, decided to shake things up a bit and signed 51-year-old. Well, not 51 yet. Will be turning 51. But Nikolai Habibulin, former great goaltender in the NHL, is lacing him back up now over in the KHL.
Yeah, Stanley Cup winning goaltender for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Nikolai Habibulin, the Bulin Wall. Yeah, he's playing for I guess this is set up differently, just probably based on how the Russian language works. But when you Google the team that he's on, it says Torpedo Nizhny Novgorod.
Yeah,
So it
to be
has
honest, I've
like
never even
it
heard
has
of him.
it has torpedo, and then I'm assuming that's the place. Yes, that's the location. So,
Yeah, it's
but
kind of
yeah,
cool to see him get back into the game. Probably won't be playing very much, if at all, really. But nonetheless, still kind of cool to see him make a little bit of a return here.
yeah, I really don't know if they plan on like making him the starter, if that's just a publicity thing to get people through the door. But uh, if he starts lighting it up super hard over there, we'll keep you in the know because winning Tampa their first Stanley Cup, obviously got a bit of a soft spot for Habby Boolin. Uh, but yeah, I was not expecting that news when I read that.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird move. Yeah, I don't really know what the reasoning behind it is. Like, I wouldn't expect him to be the starter just because, I mean, the KHL is, aside from the NHL, it's the best league in the world. So, and at 51 years old for a goaltender might be a little bit tough for him. But I guess we'll
Yeah,
we'll just kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. It is only a 1-year contract, so
yeah,
that's also something to note. But yeah, nonetheless, it'll be kind of cool to see how that plays out for him.
yeah. Just to reiterate, when Brundy said the KHL is the second best league in the world, he meant the highest standard of play, not the actual league itself.
Oh, a
Gonna
little bit of both.
They're just gonna throw it in there. They're a little sketchy over there, but
A little bit of both. Yeah. Oh, yeah. In terms of competitiveness and play style, and
yeah,
the overall, I mean, the league itself is. I think their playoffs are done quite weird over there. But so that's kind of the league where a lot of former, NHL players
yeah, kind of
go
disgraced
or,
players
or
go if they
yeah,
can't get a job now.
or
Uh,
you'll see a lot of first or second round prospects if they don't pan out over in the NHL or anything. They'll go over to the KHL and try and make a name for themselves over there as well. So there's good
yeah,
talent in that league. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares against you know a lot of these other good players that are over there. I think Kovalchuk just resigned as well, or
I wouldn't be
something over in the
surprised.
KHL to stick around there.
Um, Sticking with the Russian theme, Nikita Kucherov yesterday reached 300 career goals. So good for him. It was a very timely goal that we needed. He is
Was
he is
that
absolutely lighting it up.
was that the Florida game?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't able to catch that game, but I heard it was a pretty entertaining game to say the least.
Yeah.
Maybe not entirely if you're a fan of one of the two teams, but if you're just an outsider watching the game, it sounds like it was a pretty entertaining game.
It was really fun to watch for the first 2 periods, and in the 3rd, for the first maybe 5 minutes of the 3rd period, I was annoyed as a Tampa fan because it felt like the refs were kinda putting the screws to us, and then very quickly it just became as a hockey fan, I just don't wanna see anyone get hurt. Like, I swear if that game went another 5 minutes, somebody was getting brained out there. The refs were losing control of it fast in the last 5 minutes. So,
Yeah, and once they do
thank
it,
you thank
yeah,
God
it just
thank God at that
snowballs.
point it just didn't, go to overtime or something. I mean, most guys aren't taking
Yeah,
cheap shots once it gets to overtime, but, both teams
yeah,
got away with a lot of stuff.
yeah, yeah, and that's one of the things, right? When it starts to get a little rough out there, and the refs, kind of just let them play and aren't taking control of the game, it just kind of snowballs, and then
Yeah,
it turns into a whole separate thing. Like the game is one thing, and then you got this whole sideshow going on that
yeah.
it's entertaining. I mean, as a fan, but it's also like at some point, it's you
It
got to
was enter
tighten it up.
Yeah, it was very entertaining in the 2nd period because by that point, both teams were feeling it. It was hard hitting, but it was still fair. It That was really good, but, there was one play in the last 5 minutes where, um, I'm trying to think of who it was, Ekblad just, blatantly just, skated up and shoved Stamkos to the ice, the most obvious interference ever, and Stamkos knew the refs had put away their whistles. He just turned around and hit Ekblad in the face with his stick. That went uncalled, and then they started fighting, and, the refs immediately got involved and didn't even let them fight, so, both guys with egregious plays, and the refs who refused to police them wouldn't even, let them fight and police it themselves either. It was just a
Yeah,
bizarre sequence to watch.
yeah, yeah. It's tough when you get refs like that, and it seems like that's becoming more and more of a kind of a common trend happening. But
Yeah, I'd much rather
nothing's perfect in the
the
NHL.
refs call everything instead of nothing. I know that makes it a much more boring game, but it also makes it a lot more safe. So that's
Yeah,
that's the
exactly
trade-off
right.
I'm willing to take at least.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
But moving on from that, congratulations to Kucherov on 300 career goals. Um, Not the only Russian who was I guess that was a bit of a milestone, but tying a record, Alexander Ovechkin got his 13th penalty shot of his career, tying him for most all time with Vinny Lecavalier, which I was surprised to see he had so many. But I was also
Yeah.
surprised that, does 13 not seem insanely low to be the all time record for just most penalty shots taken? That's just taken. That's not even scored. Ovechkin's only actually got 2 penalty shot goals. But,
Um, I don't think so. Just because, I mean, before, like, it seems like we're starting to see a little bit more penalty shots this year. But I mean, before this year, you think about it, what there was maybe you would hear of like 15 or so, maybe throughout the entirety of a season before. Like
yeah.
it went. There was a long stretch where they weren't very common.
Yeah, and I at some point I wonder if they're just going to do away with the penalty shot because I feel like at this point most teams would prefer a 2-minute power play over a penalty shot.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, like I just said, I mean Ovechkin, a lot of people see him as the greatest goal scorer of all time, 2 for 13. Like some guys are really good on breakaways, but it's a one-on-one with the goalie versus a 5-on-4 where there can be up to 5 or 6 guys screening the goalie.
Yeah.
It can be real feels bad if it's a rough penalty to take and then goalie saves it and that's your chance. So
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see over the next 5 to 10 years if that's one of the changes they make, perhaps alongside with the shootout.
I don't think they'll ever get rid of the penalty shots, just because I think that in itself is kind of its own little fun thing within the game.
That's fair.
I'm still really on board of getting rid of the shootout.
Yeah,
And the thing is and it was only actually it's probably like 3 weeks ago or something. But the whole reason that they don't want to get rid of the shootout is they're like, oh, well, we don't want games going too late, and then with teams having to travel and this, like we can't have games going late. But it's like, again, if it's 3-on-3 overtime, you're not going to get like a 20-minute overtime happening. And then it was a couple weeks ago, I believe it was Pittsburgh and Montreal. They went to like a 13-round shootout.
that one was
And I
wild.
could tell you right now that if they just continued on playing 3-on-3 overtime, the game would have ended much quicker than that 13-round shootout. Um,
Well,
so
they
it's
might
kind of
have
something
to
that
change
goes
the rules
against
of 3-on-3, but yeah, I do agree.
and now also the fact that they're so dead set on keeping the shootout in, but now they're trying to micromanage it and add all these rules of like, yeah, you can't do the spinorama anymore for whatever reason.
That
They're
like
talking about getting rid
that's
of the
so
whole
weedy.
yeah, and they're talking about getting rid of the whole Kuznetsov play because he slows it down. He comes in so slow, but it's like,
I see a lot of people complain about that, but that's one of the ones where I'm like, I mean, like you look at all the rules. He's not breaking any of the rules. He's going forward because
yeah,
there is a time limit on your shot, right? You have like 30
yeah,
seconds.
yeah,
Like you like as long as he's within those 30 seconds, and moving forward the whole time, you can do that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, um, yeah, I don't know about all that.
I can see an argument for knocking it down to 20 or 15 seconds. I mean, they're NHL players. It doesn't take that long to walk in and take a shot. So
Yeah,
I could see 30 seconds being a bit much, but
I don't know. It's just my
if
thing.
they
Is like if
if they put a limit on like stick handles or something, like that's just gonna look so dumb.
yeah, yeah. Moving on, the one thing that I think is worth noting because I don't think many people expect him to be in this position. But once the Christmas break started for the league, the Vancouver Canucks were sitting top of the NHL in points, regulation and overtime wins, goals for. They were within the top five for goals against, and they were number one in the league in goal differential, which is pretty crazy considering they were kind of one of those teams that was going to be kind of people thought was going to be in the mix with like Calgary and Seattle, kind of
Yeah,
fighting for a wild card spot went up. But to go into the break top of the league, and they've already made a couple trades to improve their team early on, which is paying off huge for them already. um it's just quite incredible, the run that they've gone on, and the fact that people were like, oh, like they're gonna fall off eventually. And the fact that they haven't, and they're still pushing forward and continuing to dominate some games and stay at the top is quite impressive.
yeah, it's absolutely crazy how good they've been this year, and it's not them just being carried by people either. Like they don't have absolutely incredible depth, but like Demko has shown up for them absolutely huge. Uh,
Yeah,
their entire top six and top four on D have been incredible. Like the majority of
yeah.
that team is playing really, really well.
And probably the most, I think the biggest thing to me, and this isn't even a shot at the Oilers. And do keep in mind that the Canucks have played 4 more games than the Oilers. But if you told me that at the Christmas break that the Canucks were going to be sitting there with 18 more points than the Oilers, like that's 9 regulation or overtime wins. Like if you told me they'd be that many
Yeah.
points ahead of the Oilers at the break, I'd be like, no way, because I think I had Edmonton finishing uh, top of the Pacific Division this year, and Canucks. I think I had them, I think, in the 4 spot. which is just incredible at how big of a gap they've already created, and how, again, like the kind of the thing we always go back to is, coming down the stretch of the season, that's huge for the Canucks that they're already starting to rack up that big of a differential between them and some of uh, teams that should be, you know, top of the division battling with them.
They're not in like even the last few years, like the last 5-ish years. Generally, they don't make the playoffs, but if they do, it's because they fought hard for it in March and early April. If they play
Yeah.
500 hockey for the rest of the season, they're in.
Yeah, they're
Like
still sitting pretty.
so that might be a completely different feel for that locker room. So that would be that'll be really cool to see if they can continue that going into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which is looking a bit ahead a bit early, but I mean, it's it's exciting. They're a team that people have been saying, they're on the cusp for several years at this point, and Demko, Pedersen, Miller, and Hughes all made massive jumps this year.
Yeah.
And it's all coming together all at once, and it's an exciting time to be a Canucks fan for sure.
Yeah, and even just talking about how a hot start can set you up, like the Vegas Golden Knights are still currently third place in the league, and that's largely due to them starting off the season 11-1, because since then they're 10-13. They're a below 500 team since their hot start, and the fact that even going through a tough run like that, they're still third is huge for them.
Yeah, that's geez. I knew they lost to the Panthers and Tampa when they both came through, but that's crazy that they've gone 10-13 in their last 23.
Yeah, yeah, and they're still sitting right up there at the top. So,
But
which
they
is
do have
incredible.
some big injuries. I know Shea Theodore has been out for quite a while at this point.
Yeah, but you could also, on the flip side, Winnipeg's dealt with some injuries, and they've continued to roll on just fine.
Yeah, fair. Yeah,
But
yeah, you can give reasons, you can't give excuses. They
yeah,
yeah, every team gets injured sometimes.
yeah,
Ta- Tampa's been to the Cup final 4 times in the past 10 years, and we've always been comfortably in the playoffs, except for the one year where we missed because we just had a ton of injuries. Like
yeah,
it just happens sometimes, and there's not much you can do about it.
yeah, yeah. So that's just my thing, kind of pumping up the Canucks because they just
Well
continue to impress
deserved,
everyone,
well
especially when
deserved.
people think they're gonna fall off. They prove people wrong. That's for sure.
I don't know if it was on the podcast or not because I feel like I remember talking to you about this, but remember at the last draft when everyone was hoping the Canucks would get first overall to get Bedard because he was a fan of them when he was a kid? Fuck,
Yeah,
could you imagine this team right now with Connor
yeah.
Bedard on it?
When they were one number away, they were like, I know it's like, like Anaheim got second overall, but aside from Chicago, the Canucks were the next closest team to drawing that number one pick. Like it was right there. It was a very, very close to being a reality.
And that's you got to imagine that that's like a dynasty in the making. Like that what
Yeah,
that team is now and just adding a player of that caliber, like that just looks sensational. So,
yeah,
but Canucks are doing fine without him.
yeah. Um, Another small kind of, well, I mean, kind of with the topic of the Canucks, former Canucks defenseman Ethan Bear, just kind of returning from injury now, has signed a 2-year deal with the Washington Capitals with an AAV of just a little bit over $2 million. I
His
think that's an
agent must
awesome
have fought.
signing.
Yeah, that's a good signing for them, and his agent must have fought tooth and nail for every cent. The AAV is 2.0625. I don't
Yeah,
I don't know how you get to that number without constantly saying no. Give me a little bit more.
Yeah, fighting for every little bit you can get. But I mean, it's a great signing for the Capitals. I think he'll be awesome for them back on the right end of the blue line form, an area that they could use a little bit of help in. And getting a guy like Ethan Bear at this point of the season for free is it's really really good for them, and that's gonna pay dividends for them now going throughout the rest of the season now.
One thing I would like to know is, do they have any retention spots in Washington?
Uh, they must. I'm not even sure if I think they've probably got all of them.
Probably, because you know what? I don't know how much they need Ethan Bear in Washington, just because he is a rather offensively minded defenseman, and they've already got John Carlson, they've already got Rasmus Sandin, a couple pretty offensively minded guys. I mean, they could obviously just keep him. He's a young, great player, but if you want to trade him and retain half at the deadline, some playoff team is getting Ethan Bear for 2 years at 1.03 uh, million per year. That's a pretty nice looking deal to get at the deadline.
My guess would be, if anything, it would probably happen next year, just because I don't think teams would be willing to pay the price probably that the Capitals would want. Because you got to remember, you're giving up whatever for Ethan Bear, but then you're also having to pay quite a premium to get that salary retained. And I think more teams would most likely look uh to other players instead that would be available. But who knows? I think with Washington though, I think they're still trying to win with their core they have right now, so I don't see them really selling guys off per se. I could see it maybe being a reality next year. Um, when they don't know if he's going to stick around or not, and he's on his last year. But my guess would be he probably finishes out the season with the Capitals, just because it's very clear that they're still trying to win with their aging core, despite none of them really putting up good numbers. But they're still
They really aren't.
right in the
Like
mix. They're still
they
right in the mix. It's weird.
they are getting a lot of great goaltending, and it's weird, you look around the league, scoring is up everywhere except for Washington games. It seems like
Yeah,
every game I see of theirs, they're winning 2-1 or 3-1. Like, it's very
yeah.
low scoring games over there. So, you know what? Maybe they do have a pretty good defensive system, or just a lot of defensively minded players, because
Yeah, because
there's
they're
not a lot going on.
the only team with less goals scored than the Capitals is the Sharks, and the Sharks have only scored four less.
Jeez.
Um, so it just kind of speaks volumes, I guess, to
And
how
they're in like
well
a are they
the
in a playoff
Capitals are
spot?
playing. No, they're just outside of a playoff spot. Oh no, they are. They're actually sitting in that last wild card spot now.
How are you 31st in the league for goals and in a playoff spot at Christmas? Like,
Well, Islanders
that's
did it
kind of
for
crazy.
years.
And they're doing it with Alexander Ovechkin in the lineup. Like,
Yeah.
that's definitely did not have that on my 2023 season bingo card.
The biggest knock on them though is it's only 14 regulation or overtime wins. Um, which isn't even 50% of their games. They've currently played 32 games. So, kind of
I
take what you want with that, but it's
I
it's
definitely
not like
expect
they're
them to
a
be one of the teams
powerhouse
to fall off.
or dominant. Yeah, I still don't see them finishing the season a playoff spot, just because right below them is Tampa Bay, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, even Detroit. Uh,
M-
to think of Washington's
Montreal's
going to
even picking up
finish.
a lot of wins.
Yeah, to think that Washington's going to finish ahead of all of those teams, because I'm not even going to say anything about the Flyers, because they shouldn't be where they are, but they continue to win and they're putting up good numbers and good stats and good wins. So I'm not even going to, you know,
No, yeah,
I'm not even going to
absolutely.
speak on them, because they're more than deserving of where they're at.
Yeah, and
But to
that's
think
we've been saying
Washington,
that for people have been saying that for 20 years. Every time John Tortorella picks up a new team, oh well, he
yeah,
signed with this team. These guys all kind of suck. and then somehow they make the playoffs, and somehow they keep winning rounds. Like that guy just squeezes blood from a stone. He whatever
Yeah.
he's given, he takes it, he gets people to buy into the system, and it works.
Yeah.
And say what you will about his coaching style, whether you like him or not, I'm sure it's valid, but he gets results, and that's why he keeps getting jobs.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. What else? What else do we got here? Oh, we don't got it on the board here. But I guess we should. We're not going to go too far into it because it's been shoved down everyone's throat enough. But the other night, well, a couple of nights ago now, we saw two Michigans take place in the same night. One from Connor Bedard and then one from Trevor Zegras. I believe I'm just going to pull it up here. Bedard pulling it off against the St. Louis Blues, and then Zegras pulling it off against the Seattle Kraken. Both teams, respectively, did end up losing their games. So it's you take some good and some bad out of it, I guess, for those
Did
guys
you
and those fans.
did you see the clip of Connor or not Connor Bedard, Trevor Zegras before the game?
No.
He's talking to the Anaheim Ducks ringside uh interviewer, personality, and she is saying that for Christmas she asked for a Trevor Zegras Michigan goal tonight, and he says,
Hmm.
"I'll do my best." And so she interviewed him again after the game, and he said exactly what a coach would want to hear. It was a lot of downplaying it. It was a lot of I wish we could have won the game instead. But
Yeah.
at the end, she said, "Thanks for making my Christmas wish come true." And he looked at her with the cheekiest smile I've ever seen a hockey player pull off, and said, "Anything for you, dude." This guy's riz is off the fucking charts.
Yeah.
Like
His play this season isn't, but
it's
his
fallen
Riz
off the
is going
charts.
for him.
But that's a hell of a way to return back after a break from playing. So
Yeah. Yeah, because he missed like 20 games or so.
yeah, and I'm
Um,
pretty sure that was his first game back. So
yeah.
if that's anything to indicate, he's looking a
And then
little bit better.
Bedard continued to do his Bedard things. He pulled it off against who no one better than Jordan Bennington of the St. Louis Blues. The funniest thing, I think the best part of both of them was Bennington's response. He went on Instagram and he didn't even put any words, but he just posted a video, and it's of a little kid, probably 8 or 9 years old. It was a video from behind one of the nets, and he tried to pull off a Michigan, and the little goalie who's in the net just kind of followed him the whole way and put out his stick and just clotheslined the kid. So I thought that was a very funny response from Bennington, actually, kind of just taking it
Yeah,
for what it is, and you know bringing some
yeah,
humor out of what is obviously a very kind of embarrassing moment to happen to any goalie, and he's just kind of brushing it off and making jokes about it.
yeah. I know. I saw a lot of people say like the rare Bennington W. Like
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Like, I'm not surprised that some people have the opinion, but I'm surprised whenever I'm seeing like threads online about who's your least favorite player in the league. Bennington's usually the first one, and I figured he'd probably be around top five. But I figured a Marchand, a Wilson, uh, even a Truba or something. But it's very often Bennington is like number one or two, and that kind of surprised me sometimes. But maybe I'm just East Coast brain,
I think a
watching
lot of people
less
are
games.
just they just don't like Bennington just because and I'm not saying this is the case, but I think this is kind of the way most people feel is just in terms of when you think of like players having class, he's probably the lowest or one of the lowest um for it. Like, getting pulled from a game, and or I can't remember what exactly the scenario was, but throwing a water bottle
I was gonna say,
across the ice
the
at
the water bottle
Kadri.
at Kadri.
Uh the one people always constantly bring up is him getting pulled in that game against the Sharks and kind of throwing fake punches at players as he's getting
Yeah.
yanked off and stuff. And it's like, so I mean, he's not my least favorite player, but I can see why people
Yeah.
would have him near the top or at the top of their
Yeah.
lists. But
I think people are also very unused to goalies being so outwardly aggressive a lot of the times, you know? Like Tom
yeah,
Wilson does it and people are like, he's a grinder, that power forward, that's what he does. But when a goalie does it, people are kind of like this this is uncharted ground a little bit for people who weren't around when, Billy Smith and Ron Hextall were swinging at people.
hmm yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Um I,
so
I
congrats
think
to Bedard and Zegras for pulling it off. Maybe Bennington's video will catch on, and I think you're gonna eventually start to see goalies doing that, where they're just gonna just go wild when players try it. Like they'll do whatever they can
think
to
they're just
stop
gonna
them.
adapt and be able to stop it better. I think
Well, and with how quick
if you
Zegras
can
did his,
if you can get an eye on it, yeah, actually, like easily the best Michigan we've seen in the NHL to date. Holy crap!
yeah,
I saw an alternate angle of it where it's from the side that he's going to, and like I still have no idea how he did it. He literally just like puts his stick beside the puck, and it just like chips up as if there's a magnet on his stick and in the puck, and just goes right onto his
yeah,
stick, and then he does it at speed. Absolute thing of beauty.
yeah.
So,
It's gonna
what
be tough for goalies to stop ones like that.
you know
But
what?
you,
I think
you
you're going to
probably
see
don't.
more and more goalies yelling at their defensemen, "Go fucking stop him next time," because
Yeah,
I think a one like that is about as close to an unstoppable shot as you can get in the NHL right now.
yeah.
So,
Exactly
you know
right.
what? The defenseman's got to make sure they don't get to be down there.
Yeah. Last bit of news before we kind of hop into the last couple uh, things we've got. Chris Letang became the first defenseman in NHL history to record 5 points in a single period, which is pretty absurd, especially in the fact that it was all
Yeah.
within a 7 minute span. Not to take anything away from him, but and they were all assists.
I was going to say
Five
he's
assists, but four of
also
them were
same record
secondary
for
assists.
assists. Mm.
Um, so I mean, not to take anything away from, because I mean, to do it within, not even just a single period, but within a 7 minute span is just absurd in any fashion. So, congrats to Chris Letang for setting that record. That might be a while before we see anyone tie that record, let alone do it in a shorter span of time
Be able to
than
get
that
6, yeah.
7.
Yeah, I was everywhere I saw it reported it was different. I didn't see anything match up too often. It was a lot of, Chris Letang, first defenseman to get 5 points in a period, and then a lot of other places also had Chris Letang, first defenseman to record 5 assists in a single period, and like both
Yeah,
are true, but like it's funny that like both those separate ones are being pushed.
yeah. Yeah, I guess it really
I
just kind
feel
of
like
depends
just
what
saying
way you want
5 points
to look
is
at it.
good enough, but
Yeah,
gives you a bit of a different headline, different title.
yeah,
Is that all we have before we get into
yeah,
some of the ending stuff?
yeah. That was all. That's all I've got, at least.
Yeah, I've just got a couple things that I'm just gonna talk you through a bit, and I just want to get some of your reactions. Maybe we'll do a little guesswork on some of them.
Okay, what do we
All
got?
right. First, let's one. Okay, I am currently looking at the all-time uh, NHL player points leaderboard. There are 4 currently playing players that are in the top 50. Which are those 4 players?
Um, well, Sidney Crosby,
Yep.
And these are active players still currently playing.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously Crosby, Ovechkin's probably on there.
Yep.
Um, those are actually probably 1 and 2 out of all current active players.
Yep. The other two are
Um,
much lower, right beside each other, number 40 and 41. Um,
I
Probably
guess
not that hard to get, honestly.
uh,
I wouldn't
Malkin
say.
would be one,
Yep, Malkin's 40,
and then probably the guy that
10 behind.
oh, they're right beside each other. So that actually kind of gave it away. That would be Patrick Kane then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those two have been like right beside each other in points scored for the last little bit,
Makes sense.
and
They
all of them are going to continue to probably move up
for sure.
more and more on that
And
board
so
there.
that's why I wanted to do this segment, because over the past maybe 2 weeks, Crosby has jumped another 2 points up the all-time leaderboard. He is currently 13th all-time in NHL scoring,
He is about
and
to pass Joe Thornton.
he's only 2 points behind Jumbo Joe right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? He's probably going to pass Ray Bourque during this season, and if he puts up enough numbers, he'll probably just get close, but he might pass Esposito and get into the top 10 at 1590. So
Yeah.
Crosby is still going at an incredible rate. I feel like I've seen a lot of people write him off in the last few years, but good lord, he looks like he's about to have his best season.
I was going to say he continues to just prove people wrong. Even when people start to think, oh, he might be falling off or whatever, he just continues to prove people wrong. And was one of those guys that just almost kind of seems to get better and better now with age. So I expect him to jump up quite a few more spots throughout this season and next season. And depending on how long he plays, like it's not out of the realm for him to get up into that top 5.
No, I definitely think that's possible with another few good seasons. Like if he really fights against time, he can get as high as number 2, I think. I mean, like that's a tall order for sure, but it's Sid the Kid we're talking about. The way he's
Yeah,
playing right now, another 400 points isn't impossible.
it's really just a matter of how much longer he decides to keep playing for.
Yeah. And if he falls off, because despite how funny it is to say Russian machine never breaks, everyone who plays in the NHL is human and eventually slows down, as we're seeing with Ovechkin. And a lot of people thought it was a foregone conclusion he'd break Gretzky's record. Uh, I think he'll still do it, but it's not as
Yeah,
much of a
he'll
slam
still
dunk as it
break
looked
it.
at the start of the year.
Yeah, he'll still break it. He'll stick around until he does.
Just for anyone wondering, we don't have to do anything with this, but I'm gonna list some other active players in the top 100, just because that's fun. Anze Kopitar, 55th overall in points with 1,172. Steven Stamkos, 67th all time, 1,091. Nicholas Backstrom, 83rd all time with a 1,033. 85, Joe Pavelski with
Oh, yeah.
1,032. 86, Claude Giroux with 1,030. And 97th, John Tavares, 1,005.
Yeah, it's crazy. How many current players in the league right now are all sitting in the top 100 for our all-time points?
Yeah.
Like it's crazy to think within like what? Uh probably if when we're talking a year from now, Connor McDavid's even going to
Yeah.
be potentially up in there. Like
He'll be in the top 100 by the end of this season. I would not doubt it. Um,
what's number 100
I
at?
I was just going to go mention, but McDavid. Did I say Bedard or McDavid?
I think a little bit of both.
Probably. 100 is actually also a current player. He's just not bolded on this. I count him as a current player. Phil Kessel. 992 points. Connor McDavid is 125th overall in 598 games with 894 points. So he's like 110 points off from the top 100.
He doesn't get that this season. Next season, he will for sure.
I'm going to say probably not this season.
Yeah, I just don't see McDavid throughout the remainder of the season going at like a 3 points per game pace. I think that's just a little bit too tall of a task.
It's fun to at least have a player that we're saying probably to that for.
Yeah. The fact that like it is very well possible.
Like,
I don't think it's going to happen, but
if a time traveler came back and told me, I wouldn't not believe him.
Yeah. Speaking of time travel, I got a fun low one here. I'm not going to really, go too hard in on this because I would be shocked if you get maybe 2 or 3 of these.
Okay.
So we're going to go back to the 2014-2015 NHL season.
Okay.
I've got 8 countries here. I'll give you the point totals, and you got to try and guess what player had the most points from these countries during that season.
Okay.
Over the full 82 game season. So we'll start with the least amount of points and then work our way up. So it's 21 points from Germany.
I'm gonna guess Draisaitl.
No, I'll give you two. I'll give you 2 guesses per one.
Jeez, German player? God, there haven't been many in the league. Like, when did I don't even know, Sturm?
No, it was
German Sturm that played.
Tobias Rieder or Ryder, whichever way you want to pronounce it.
Yeah. Okay.
There's 2 players for this one from Finland. So if you get either one, I'll give it to you. With 48 points.
It's early in his career, but I'm going to. Is that even too early? I don't know. I'm gonna guess Barkov.
It is not Barkov.
Finland, Finnish. Is Rantanen Finnish? When did Rantanen?
Yeah, but he got drafted at the end of that season.
Oh yeah, he was 2015. That's a bit ago. It's hard to even remember, who was lighting it up back then. I really don't know. The only other Finnish player I can think of is Roope Hintz. And I think
it was Mikko Koivu and Valtteri Filppula.
Filppula, he was still
the
putting
2
up
of
numbers.
Them. Next, this one might be this one's a little bit of an easier one.
I imagine they'll get easier.
Some of them not so much.
Right.
From Switzerland with 55 points.
Roman Josi.
It is Roman Josi.
Yeah.
From Slovakia with 61 points.
Anze Kopitar?
It is not Kopitar. Kopitar's Slovenia.
Slovenia. I was going to say, I don't think he's from Czechia, but Slovakia feels wrong. Slovenia. So from Slovakia...
There's really only one guy.
Yeah?
During this time that it could be, really. And honestly, off the top of my head, actually, no, I guess I could now, but he bounced from a couple teams before this season. He kind of liked to bounce around a bit.
Yeah.
Cup chasing, if you will.
Marian Hossa. I appreciate the help.
What do I got next? Yeah, so this is one of the this is one of the really, really tough ones. So there's still 4 countries left.
Okay.
The United States with 73 points.
Well, if it's difficult, I'm going to assume it's probably not Patrick Kane.
It is not Patrick Kane.
73 points is possible for a defenseman. So I'm going to guess John Carlson.
It is not John Carlson. I'll give you one more just because,
Yeah.
just for fun.
Give me one more so I can guess Jamie Benn.
Jamie Benn's Canadian.
Oh, God. He plays for the Stars. I try not to think about it. American player who's not Patrick Kane. He's like all of them.
Think of a good leader, good locker room guy.
Good locker room guy. Good locker room guy and leader. I can only think of Canadians. Every guy I'm thinking of.
I can just tell you because I don't think you would have got it, even if I gave you probably 10 guesses.
Every captain I'm thinking of is Canadian. My God. Yeah. Who is it?
Nick Foligno.
Good
I'm
for
not
him,
even
man.
kidding. Nick Foligno
I forgot he was scoring
All
at that.
Americans.
I forgot he was scoring at that rate at one point.
With the
Good
Blue
for him.
Jackets as well.
Yeah.
Sweden with 78 points.
78 points, Sweden. Lidstrom had, I think, retired at that point.
Yeah.
There's definitely a few guys it could be. I'm going to go with Erik Karlsson.
It is not Erik Karlsson.
Is it a defenseman?
No.
I'm going to go with, which one? Let's go Henrik Sedin.
No. It is, we talked about him earlier, Nicholas Backstrom.
Oh, it was Backstrom.
Only 2 left. Czechia with 81 points.
Czechia. So no Russia?
No, they're not on here. Probably because when this was made, this is still, every hockey post is kind of outlawing them right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm assuming for Russia is probably either Ovechkin or Malkin.
Yeah. Kucherov at that point, I think, put up I think he was like 80. But
honestly,
Malkin was probably still higher at that point, unless he was injured that year.
Yeah, we know back to then Ovechkin was still dropping 50 goals alone. So
yeah. For Czechia, how many?
It's a tough one.
Are you saying what's the point total? Can I know?
81 points. So he would have been right up at the top of there for the league leader.
Is Tomáš Hertl Czech?
He is, but I can promise you it ain't Hertl.
Like I can't even think of stars from there. Like I'm thinking like Andre Palat, like I don't
it's definitely not. It ain't Andre Palat.
Yeah. Yeah. Nino Niederreiter. Nah, he's Swiss.
Yeah, he's Swiss.
It's not Kovalchuk. Nah, I don't know.
Just for anyone curious, I did pull it up here just to double check. Ovechkin did lead Russian players that year with 81 points. So he would have been just above this guy. It is Jacob Voracek.
Voracek.
Jacob Voracek. And then lastly, Canada with 87 points.
I'm going Crosby because you said 87.
Would it change your opinion if I said he won the Art Ross with 87
right.
points?
Famed American player Jamie Benn.
It is Jamie Benn. I saw this the other day and I was like,
that's even why I guessed Jamie Benn earlier, because I knew he won the Art Ross.
yeah. Like what a year. Jamie Benn leading Canadians in points, Nick Foligno leading Americans.
That's a lot of goofy names to be
It was
leading their
wild.
countries in points.
Yeah.
Like, they're all great players, but
You wouldn't expect them to be the top of the list, though. That's for sure.
no.
But yeah, that's all I had. I don't know if you had anything else. Still stored.
I had a few other ones. We'll go through them a bit quicker. Just a couple other all-time things. Just a leaderboard update on all-time. We got the top 50 all-time point scorers for defensemen in the NHL.
Oh, all time, jeez.
And I don't think we need to make a guessing game out of this one, but I just wanted to highlight some of these guys. At some point this season, must have broken into 14th on the list. Brent Burns with 854 points.
Yeah, I think recently, actually, might have even just been after tonight, because I think he scored a goal tonight. But I think he's now like 10th all time in goals scored from defensemen.
Can I sort by that?
Okay, never mind. He did not score a goal tonight. He had 2 assists though, but he did not score.
Doesn't matter. He's still 9th all time in defenseman scoring.
Oh, it was last night. It was last night he scored a goal. Yeah, so he's right up in there for.
He buries
for the goals scored department.
Erik Karlsson, 19th all time, 783 points in only 953 games. Like,
yeah,
the guy right below him has 300 more games, 320 more games. The guy above him has like 150 more. Like,
yeah,
dude scores at an unreal rate. 27, we talked about him earlier. Chris Letang, really padding his stats there the other night. 27th all time for Chris Letang, 714. Not far behind Victor Hedman, 29 with 686 points. And then rounding out the top 50, we got Ryan Suter at 33, John Carlson at 36, Drew Doughty at 39, Roman Josi at 41. Don't know why 39 and 40 are out of order. 47, Shea Weber, and Alex Pietrangelo at 49. So that's a lot of active players.
That's a lot, yeah.
That are in the top 50. Like, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of the top 50 all time are currently playing, and
yeah,
like, are any of them even going to retire that soon? Like, somewhat soon for sure, but like Shea Weber's realistically probably done, I suppose. But like,
Shea Weber, he's done.
But like, Drew Doughty's got gas left in the tank. John Carlson's not done yet. Ryan
probably
Suter's,
the closest to retiring is either
probably getting close.
It's probably Suter and Letang are probably the two that are.
Letang,
I would say, be the close. And Letang is really just due
maybe
to
Burns,
past injuries,
like,
and whatnot.
He's getting old, but like, he's still producing like crazy. So
yeah, and he's still, like, a lot of guys will say he's despite his age, he's one of the guys who's in the best shape in the Carolina locker room, which speaks volumes as to how hard he trains and takes care of himself and whatnot.
Probably not in better shape than their coach, though. Ooh,
yeah.
Rod the Bob.
I think even if Burns sticks around, he'll be one of those guys that, as maybe gets a bit older, a bit slower. It's maybe he's a third pairing Guy maybe only plays
Third
like
pairing guy who could play on the
15
second
minutes a
power
night.
play.
But yeah, he could still quarterback a power play and still rip it from the point or pass it off. Like it's, you know, even with Joe Thornton, when you saw him be a, kind of a fourth line center with Toronto and Florida, he was still a power play guy because he was great on the half wall. And, even with age, your passing's still what it always was. And there's not many guys who could dish it off like him. It's so, but yeah, in terms of age, Burns is probably
I think he's
probably one of
30.
the closest to retirement.
Yeah. Moving on to just overall goals, goals in a career. Ovechkin is in second, as we all know. But Crosby has made his way up to 23. He's been shooting up as of late. Another 10 goals, he'll be in 21st. So Crosby in 23, Stamkos is 36, and those are the only three in the top 50 currently playing.
Yeah.
That is some very elite company.
Yeah, I'd be interested in, 2 or 3 years time looking at it and seeing how many active players are in that top 50.
Yeah. If he can keep his goal scoring up, it'll be interesting to see if Stamkos can catch Crosby. He's like 2 or 3 years younger than him, and he is at 530 compared to Crosby's 569. So he's behind by about 39 goals. So
I think if Stamkos stays in Tampa, he will. If he doesn't, then it's a toss up because then it would really just depend on where he goes. But I think he'll stay in Tampa. So I think he probably,
yeah,
when it's all said and done, he'll probably finish ahead of Crosby, but just by a little bit.
yeah. It's so hard to tell, like especially talk about Crosby because he could retire next season, and I think people would get it. He could retire in 7, and I think he'd be producing great numbers up until then. So
Well, and we're even
it
talking
really whenever
about
he's done.
yeah, we're even talking about Crosby and Stamkos. Probably two of the you know best guys in the league throughout the last 12, 13 years, and how much time have they missed due to injuries? Like it's crazy to think about how much higher up on the list those two could be, had they not have missed the amount of time they had due to, their numerous injuries that they've suffered.
Yeah,
Because when you
I
think of the best in the
genuinely
league, they missed more than anyone else, I think.
yeah, I genuinely believe that if Stamkos never got injured, we would be talking about right now, one, if Ovechkin could catch Gretzky, and two, if Stamkos can catch Ovechkin. I think if he hadn't missed the time at the goal rate he was scoring at, I think he'd be pretty close to at least 700 right now. And I probably higher than that because he's putting up these numbers after becoming, I don't want to say becoming more of a playmaker, but he's definitely not as shoot first as he used to be.
Yeah. I don't think
He had
he
to
would
adapt his
catch
game.
Ovechkin or be where Ovechkin is, but I think realistically we'd be on a Stamkos watch of him getting into the top three of all time. Like I think if he hadn't, I think it very realistically could have been Stamkos, Ovechkin, and Gretzky in those top three. Because what's the
Yeah.
difference between Stamkos and number three? Like how
Uh,
far apart are
so
they?
Gordie Howe is 801 in third. Stamkos currently is at 530. So he is
And how old is
271
Stamkos?
behind. Stamkos is, I believe, 32.
Oh yeah, so you know what? Even just taking into account where he'd be at without the injuries and then the remainder of his career, yeah, he probably would have gotten up there.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about sports, right? Some injuries, and you're always kind of thinking about what could have been, and
yeah.
some
And
of the potential record-breaking moments or milestones that we miss out on.
yeah, and we're talking about guys who've missed out. 4 more goals, and Crosby's about to pass Mike Bossy. Talk about a guy who could have been higher up.
Yeah.
573 goals in 752 games. Holy crap.
Yeah. And I'll down that hill, even though, he's Bossy isn't number one on the list or anything. I think in terms of a pure goal scorer, like there was nobody better than Bossy. Like, and that what you just said right there speaks alone to it. Like, to have over 500 goals and like 700 in some games, like that's just absurd.
Yeah. His
Like
goal scoring numbers are ludicrous.
like if you compared that to the amount of games played that other guys, I mean, it was just it's a tough time to compare, games played. But had he even played, 1,000 games or 1,100, like some of these other guys have already hit, like, yeah,
Yeah. The guys that Bossy is beside are Crosby and Recchi. The guy below him on the list, Crosby, compared to his, again, 752 games, is at 1,223. And the guy above him
yeah,
is at 1,652. The
yeah,
guy with 4 more goals he has 900 games exactly more played than Bossy.
yeah. Like that's
And
that's
and
that's
that's
nuts.
no scrub. That's Mark Recchi. That's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly right.
1,500 points. Like, that's comparing him to the best.
But
I
with all that
had
said and done, do we
I
got
had
anything left?
one more I wanted to get to, but I don't think I will actually go through this entire top 50. I think I will just highlight one that is about to move up. I'm looking at NHL records for all-time goaltending wins. But instead of going through the top 50, I'm just going to highlight number 3, Marc-Andre Fleury. He is currently at 550 wins. Patrick Waugh is at 551.
Wow.
Fleury wins 2 games, and he will be the second winningest goaltender of all time in the NHL.
I still can't believe there's people out there that truly believe that he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
I
like, that's I get the argument because they're like, he's never really been a top goalie in the league and stuff like that. I think the Vezina really secured it a few years ago, even though I think it should have gone to Vasilevsky, but that's completely beside the point. Uh, he's been insanely consistent. He, like, the best goalies find a way to win. There's a reason that there's no backup who was on a good team at the top of this list. Like,
yeah.
these are all guys that are absolutely revered, and you
And the
don't
fact
get
like
there
he's
without being
got
great.
three Stanley Cups. Like I get, two of me really didn't play much during them, but even just looking at Vegas, like Vegas doesn't reach the Cup final their first year. Probably doesn't even make it out of the first round if they don't have Fleury as their goalie.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, and the fact that he's going to be second all time in wins, 100% will be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
unless it's a negative stat, there is no stat you should be able to be number 2 all time in and not be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Like, unless
unless it's
it's
like
like
penalty minutes or
unless it yeah,
something,
penalty minutes or shots missed the net or being a minus or something.
or
Because, like,
hits.
yeah, I'll give you hits even.
Nah, you
Like,
can't tell me Cal Clutterbuck is a Hall of Famer.
oh, well.
Nah, you
Well,
can't
I
tell
guess
me him
that's
and Matt
that's
Martin are
different. They
going in
haven't
hand in
been
hand.
they haven't been tracking hits for near as long as they've tracked everything else. So that's also like most hits in the last 15 years.
Still number one all time though. I think he's number one now. Yeah, he
I
is.
think
Yeah,
so. But that's only recorded history.
yeah. But that's the thing is
These
like
other
if
guys,
it's
all these other stats are
you
recorded
still need it
pretty
to be a guy
beginning of
that's
time.
putting up a Hall of Fame career outside of
Yeah.
just hits and not really fights actually for him as much. But yeah, with all that, do you want to run us through the current? I mean, it's probably gonna be very similar to last one, but do you want to give us a quick recap of the
Yeah, we can run through
leaders around the
the
league?
league leaders. Um I'll just rattle off these ones pretty quick. The point leaders, 1, 2, and 3 respectively, are Nikita Kucherov with 58, Nathan McKinnon with 56, and JT Miller with 48. In goals, expanding his lead quite a bit. Again, this one is 1, 2, and 2. Got two second guys are tied. You got Austin Matthews with 28 goals already on the year. And then you got Nikita Kucherov and Brock Besser both with 24. For plus minus, you got Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronik, and Dylan DeMello with 28, 23, and 20 respectively. For wins for goaltenders, we got Thatcher Demko with 17, Gorgiev with 17, Bobrovsky and Hellebuck both with 16. And then for save percentage, we got Aiden Hill with a 933, Jeremy Swayman with a 929, and Charlie Lindgren with a 928. Charlie Lindgren really stealing some games for Washington, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah. Right on. Well, that's leaders around the league. You got any last thing you want to throw in before we hop out of here?
No, I think I am all good. We will be doing a World Juniors update podcast fairly soon. So stay tuned for that. But that's all I got for now.
Right on. Well, thanks again, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Stick 'em Up podcast. If you want to join in on the conversations and whatnot with us over on social media, you can find us over on Instagram and on Twitter/X at SEU Hockey. Feel free to throw us a follow, shoot us a message, join in on the conversations there. And with that, thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys in the next one.